Okay, I am so excited to be back with Natalie from Yours in Flight. So, if you missed the last video that Natalie and I did about private slash corporate aviation flight attendants versus, not versus, but compared to commercial flight attendants, I would love for you to watch that video after you watch this one because it is a deep, deep dive into all of the ins and outs, and there's a ton of basic information there that we're going to build on today. You don't have to go watch it right now. You can watch this video. You're already here. We don't want you don't have to leave. But based on that video, we had a lot of questions that came in. And so we wanted to get back together and do sort of a rapid fire Q&A, answer some of the most common questions that came up after that video was released. So if you don't get your question answered, we all have different backgrounds, different nuances, different situations. Natalie would love it if you reached out to her. She has all the questions. This is what she does, or she has all the answers to your questions. This is what she does. She helps aspiring corporate private flight attendants find their niche, find their sweet spot, create the life and the lifestyle that they're dreaming about on that side of aviation. So she's the girl that knows all of that kind of information and has the contacts and the resources. She's been in the industry for a while, and she came from the commercial side. So if you're a commercial flight attendant, she has been where you've been too, and she's actually made that transition. She has friends though that started as private flight attendants that were not commercial flight attendants first. So wherever you are, if you're thinking about that jet set life on the private jet, she's the one that's going to have all the answers, as well as the resources and the information that you need to get your foot in the door, and more than that, build your career. So I'm excited to ask a couple questions.
I'm too.
The first question I have, this is a question I have. What about uniforms? So on the commercial side, it's always like, what uniform is cute? What am I going to wear? So are you issued a uniform, or are you wearing a suit, or is it kind of depending on what you're doing? How do uniforms work?
Okay, so I actually enjoy this part of the uniform because there really isn't one.
Oh, cool.
It's more of finding what fits you as far as a skirt, or is it a dress, or is it pants, or is it a pantsuit, or whatever. And then also it depends upon I depend upon like what kind of day is it going to be like? Is it going to be a long duty day where pants are more appropriate? But basically all of my personal uniforms come from Amazon. And
Oh,
so
okay.
like a lot of the girls that I've seen posting in the group about what they're wearing for their interview day, that's the same a lot of the same brands that I wear in private.
Okay, so you're just kind of like taking inspiration from what we would consider like a flight attendant look, kind of like what
Yes,
we do for an interview. So
correct.
right above the knee, business wear, no sleeveless, like that kind of thing, kind of more.
Correct. And
Yeah.
and then even then there's a little bit more leeway. It just because there's an opportunity to be more of yourself, your personality
Okay.
shining through. So it's not uncommon. I Royal blue is one of my common colors that I wear, and I don't really see that in a lot of other uniforms. Some of my friends they'll do different colors. They'll do a jacket one day for red if they're going for like a football team, they're going to like a
Oh,
football
good.
game, or like just to be more in tune with what the purpose of the trip is. And also to clarify, the uniform part that I'm referencing is from a contract standpoint. And then there are some charter companies that do have uniforms that you fit into there. So it just depends on
Oh.
where in private aviation you are.
So if you end up with like maybe a net jets or wheels up, they
Mhm.
maybe will have at least a
They do.
more guideline or a uniform. Oh, okay.
They do
Okay.
have a uniform. Yes,
Oh,
I didn't
perfect.
make that clear before. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I love that. So it's nice, I'm sure, to be able to sort of like fit where you're going to, or what you're
Yes.
doing, like the vibe,
Mhm.
because I mean, it's all part of the presentation, right?
It is.
Food,
Yep.
the clothes, all of that. Good. Good. So
Another example to showing your personality, the Kentucky Derby was a few weeks ago. Some of the flight attendants took that into their consideration of their uniform. There was one
yeah,
of my friends that she's on a Part 91 account, and she had a hat, a big old hat.
perfect. Good. Of course she did.
You know,
Why
so
would
she
she
could,
not? That's
right?
amazing. Yeah. Okay, good, good. Now, all right. So now I have another question for you. If there was one class that you would recommend someone taking, let's say like a culinary or a language class or like a hospitality class, like or first aid, what is like a class if someone is they've already kind of started their applications and you know they're in that waiting game where they're just trying to feel like trying to like up their resume or bulk up their resume, what would be the
Yes.
top thing you would recommend for that?
Okay. Safety training at either flight safety or
Okay,
air care
good.
facts. Those are the two. Do not go anywhere else for safety training. Those are like the Yale and Harvard, and that are the most recognized by everyone.
Okay.
So I fell into that in the beginning of going to the quote unquote wrong safety training, but it actually propelled me forward of like totally committing.
Okay.
So everybody's in their different spot in life, but air care facts and flight safety are, you will not go wrong if you go with either one of those for the flight safety. The
Perfect.
second aspect is doing anything culinary. Da
Anything
Vinci,
culinary. Good. Okay.
yes, anything culinary, because then you
Taking
can have,
notes. This is good. Okay.
okay. I
I
highly
learned.
recommend two different ones. Da Vinci in flight, let's see. Da Vinci
Mhm.
is here in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale. And then Corporate School of Etiquette is in California. And those two
Oh,
are very well recognized. So like you can use names of like, I've been under the tutelage of such and such, whatever person, because both schools have people that have been in the industry for 20,
yeah.
30 years. So that says a lot too.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, I love that. So, safety training, if you're in a place where you're getting your safety training, because I know we talked about in the last video, safety
Mhm.
training to start is not mandatory.
Correct.
But
Correct.
you know, as flight
Highly
attendants, especially
encouraged.
since we have commercial backgrounds, you and I both are in that
Mhm.
safety vibe. Like we're like more safety is always better than less. Okay, so that
Yes.
but then and so I imagine too, what would be your thoughts about if I'm not able to go somewhere? If I go to like my local tech school or take a cooking class or a culinary class or something like that, is all of that
Mhm.
valuable too, or does it just have to be really formalized?
No, no, no. If you've got any kind of training experience or skills that you can put down, a catering, if you're thinking more local catering companies, um, I mean, we've talked about, there was tons of FBOs. There's more FBOs than there are airports, which are the smaller
Right.
executive airports. So where those are, there's normally a catering company close by. So I have actually encouraged mentees that are trying to break in to get like go volunteer, work on Saturdays, whatever, however schedule it works for you, just to be able to get around the culinary aspect of things. And then also having a taste of aviation and how they package things. And it's
Yeah.
not bringing out these big old boxes of things, but doing it more that'll fit in the galley. So,
Right. Okay, good. I love that because I think that that's really helpful for people, especially if you are a commercial flight attendant right now and
mhm.
you do have like a little bit of downtime or you just have days off and you're not quite ready or in a position where you could just take the time off to go to fax or go to Da Vinci. Um,
Yes.
I love that idea of being able to still kind of get your feet wet and see what it's like.
Yes.
That's really cool. I love that. And Natalie
Yeah.
and I actually met at Da Vinci. We were there
Yep.
for a networking event that they had.
Mhm.
So both of us are big fans of that school for their culinary training. And even on the commercial side, I knew Da Vinci's name for their culinary training. And they even
Yes.
offer training if you are a commercial flight attendant and you want to increase your skills. You love working
Mhm.
first class international, they actually have programs there to even elevate you into the next
Yes.
level just so that you can provide a more beautiful service on your flights too. So big fan of everything that they're doing over there for sure. And then I cut you off a minute ago.
I don't even remember now.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good. Good. So now, from the kind of on the same line, if you are a commercial flight attendant, do you need to be a mainline, like first class Delta, to then go to private? Or is all of commercial sort of looked at evenly? Or what are your thoughts on that?
When people ask me about coming from commercial, I can say that it really has no weight. There's differing opinions about that. There's some that say don't say you're coming from mainline because they think that you are conformed to this is how you do it, when it has absolutely nothing to do with the way private is. I saw it as a benefit. I found it to be a benefit from experience because there were some people that liked that I had that safety mindset already, while the customer service was just natural. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, and we see that even on the commercial side too, because people will ask me, should I be a regional flight attendant first before? And it's like, no, you shouldn't be a regional flight attendant first. That's not a should.
Right.
But if you are a regional flight attendant, great. If you're not, great. You know, whatever opportunity like presents itself first. Like you're saying, the benefits, if you go to regional flight attendant training first and then you go to mainline, you already know you can open the lab from the outside. I remember when I learned that, blew my whole freaking mind. Like things, right, you already have learned. So you do have a little bit of a platform to stand on, but it's not like, you know, I deserve to do this because I did that. So it's kind of like in the way you present it too, because if you do show up, you know, with all those shiny wings, like I'm this, that, the other. I mean, in any interview, flight attendant interview, you're gonna that kind of stinks. It kind of has a smell to it, you know, and that's not what anyone's looking for. Yeah, it does kind of like it's like on you, you know. So okay, good. I love that answer. So kind of where you are now is a great place to start if you have this desire to
wherever you are.
Yeah. So what's
oh,
go ahead.
I'm saying if you don't have any aviation experience, if you're coming from a nursing background or a golf caddy or, you know, or a lifeguard, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, and this is what you decide to start doing, it doesn't matter what your experience is. If you as a person have the natural qualities of being able to serve and wanting to help people, however that looks like, everything else comes into play. It comes into place, that falls into place.
I love that. And that's going to be everyone who just heard her say that, wherever your goal is in aviation, that's the truth. I mean, honestly, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Either side. That's my belief. Either side, commercial or private. If you're supposed to be there, it will happen.
Because you can learn the things you need to learn to do either one, you know. So if you are, let's say, let's do two scenarios. One, let's say you're a stay-at-home mom for the last 10 years. Kids are grown now. You have been thinking about private aviation. You don't have any flight attendant background, but you've been volunteering at the PTA and making all the cakes and like you're good at the stuff, right? What would be your first next step? What do you recommend?
What first comes to mind is you would be perfect for a Part 91 family that is a husband and wife and children. Because you have that mother mentality and maternal that comes naturally to you. So when you have children in the family on board, your mind is instantly already going towards different snacks and creativity ways of doing that. Me, not so much because I don't have children. So it comes a little bit more of a challenge to me, but I get there. But for someone that has it already, you have a leg up on me.
Okay, so you're saying that, so the first thing would be to think about reach out to you because you have the network, but that would be, I love that. Okay, so that would be kind of like a really good fit. Seeing perfect, just like she said, no matter what your background is. Let's say I'm commercial flight attendant. So I've been a commercial flight attendant for 20 years now. I've done my career. I'm at the place where I could retire, and I could retire from my airline, keep my flight benefits, but I want to do something more. What do you think would be my best next step?
Reach out to me. I will start guiding you in that direction. People that are in my mentee program, I start encouraging them to get their feet wet by getting in the industry somehow. And the FBO their local FBO is a fantastic platform to to start being in it, because there's different jobs that you can have in the FBO. You could be a service agent, which is behind the desk, and you're the first face that the client sees whenever they come into the FBO, and you're like the liaison between the client and the flight crew and making sure that they meet. So you're already, and so you never know who you're going to see. Never know who you're going to see in those FBOs. I have friends I have one specific friend that I'm thinking of that she had that job, and a jet owner came in, loved her so much,
Yeah.
immediately said, come work for me. So she did. She quit her service agent job and went to fly him for full time. And then there's another job that you can do is being, I don't know the technical, we call them line guys. I know that's not the
Yeah.
technical
I think
term
it's a
for it.
line tech, I think is right.
Lined, okay,
Yeah.
maybe. I
Yeah.
think it's something a tech or something. But it's dirty work, but you learn so much because you're helping get the flight attendant iced coffee and papers. So whenever you're doing that from the FBO and taking it out to the plane, you get to see all these different types of aircraft that if you've never been in aviation and you have no idea what it looks like, never been on a private jet, you get to see all of these private jets. Now, granted, if you have to do it during the sun, during the snow and the rain and all of the things, but you get tips from us.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it too. They don't pay as well, but if you're retired, answering your question and going back to that, if you're retired and you want to just have something else to do and see if this is for you, I suggest go to your local FBO and see if there's something you can do there.
I love that. My husband actually did that job during COVID. So
That's right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so he had that job at a private airport inside of a country club in Key Largo. And so he did all of that and got to see that side of it as well, because he's a ramper. So it was similar, but he learned how to fuel the aircraft, which he didn't know how to do before, and all that other kind of stuff too. So I love that. I love that idea. And then I imagine too, you could, if you're retiring, depending on your income need, you could just jump right into fax training.
Yes, I would highly encourage it.
Yeah, and then kind of just go in that direction. Good. And I love what you're saying about you never know who you're going to meet, because I've heard plenty of stories about people who are working first class and having someone say, give them a business card and say, I'm really looking for someone to do this or that. Everything from like manage my yacht to work on my private jet to, so and then that can always sometimes connect together depending on where you end up and things like that too, because there is so many opportunities, which I know you've kind of opened my eyes to this. And then as I've just been sort of paying attention over the last probably 2 years, Casey got the job. I'm just like, there's so many different there's families, there's companies, there's corporations. I think debunking the myth that it's just all rich white oil guys, that have private.
Thank you. Yes, because it's not. Yeah.
It's not at all. Or, movie stars or rock and roll or whatever, it's not. It's a lot of families, a lot of businessmen, a lot of business people, because time is money, and it's just so much more quicker for them to get on a private jet than it is to go through TSA, be at the airport 3 hours early, all that kind of stuff too.
And to kind of help people to see if that really, I debunking the myth of it's just so far out there and so far out of reach. I wanted to bring it to the table of, I like to use the example of there's families that are like Duck Dynasty. You don't have to be fancy for them. They're just ordinary people. Then you got the politicians, and then you got the celebrities, and then you've got different companies in your hometown. Like I looked up Arkansas to see what was in Arkansas. Dillard's is there. There's just different, and Walmart is there. So there's different companies that you wouldn't even, McDonald's, Home Depot, Bank of America. If you're in North Carolina, it's just, there's so many things that even still, I still think, oh wow, they got an aviation. Of course they do. Like you wouldn't, like Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm using fast food all of a sudden, but just companies that you wouldn't, I don't know where that came from.
No, that makes sense, because you think those are like low brow kind of things, but I mean,
$1 burger as a private jet.
Do it. Yeah. That's so cool. I love that. That's really, really neat to think about. And then I, with some of the broker or I guess that's the right word, or some of the companies, it's people with shares. So you're not flying executives around, it is like the one family vacation or the couple events that they're going to from time to time, or the Kentucky Derby that they go to every year, or the Masters. I know I saw pictures of Augusta Airport with the number of aircraft that they had jammed into the tiny little Augusta airport for the Masters. You know, just even just like events like that where maybe you're not on seeing the same people all the time. So what do you do? Do you usually see exactly the same people, or do you have a couple accounts, or how does your like
I
from
have
personally work?
personally, I have two Part 91 accounts that I contract with on a regular basis that I
Okay.
have that I one of them is I once a month for a week, 7 to 8 days, just depends. And then the other one is more sporadic whenever the owner has company on board. When it's just him, he doesn't need it, doesn't want it. But whenever
Okay.
he has the captain requested that we have somebody on board from a safety standpoint. So there's that aspect why it would be valuable to have safety training because it brings more job opportunities. But
Yeah.
whenever he does long trips, he's trying to talk him into doing the longer trips to have somebody on from a safety standpoint. But it's his bed, it's his house, it's
Yeah.
his jet. So that's something that I'm incredibly respectful of saying, reading the body language of don't want anybody around me right now. And
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what I personally do are two Part 91 accounts, and they're both very vastly different too.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So it'd be like if you had someone who came in and helped you just when you were having parties at your house
Mhm.
or something. I hear
Mhm.
Sophie. So if you have, yeah, so like we have a, you know, I have a party, so I have someone that I every year come or whatever and do it. But as opposed to just always serving the one guy or whatever. Like, so I think that even just that little example, it sounds a lot less pretentious than I think we probably from the
Yes.
would look at. Like he
Yes.
doesn't need a I mean, he's got you on retainer, but like I don't need her to like plate up my, you know,
He don't want it.
charcuterie
He like
board
truly,
every single
yeah,
time.
he truly,
Like I
yeah,
don't
he
care.
truly,
Right?
he
Yeah.
doesn't. He doesn't. In fact, he prefers to take care of it himself. Like he knows it's his kitchen, the
Yeah.
galley. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Take his
very
shoes
different.
off, snore if he want, like right without having like an audience, I'm sure. Okay, good, good. I love that. Okay, so let's see. Other I know that so one thing I think that's different, or I don't know how to phrase the question, but private flight attendants make a lot of money. Would you say
Mhm.
that's true, not true? Like, how do you kind of like, oh, they make a lot of money? How do you kind of navigate that kind of question?
That's a great question, and one of the most common questions. It's the commercial. I'm coming from commercial, and how much do you make?
Right.
Um, you can make a lot of money. I consider that I'm doing well. I haven't always. It takes work to get to that point. So to kind of put it in perspective, if you are just starting off, I normally suggest finding one of the charter companies that hire newbies, which there are several. Then that pay is not as it's probably equivalent to commercial pay, roundabout. It just depends on which
Okay.
charter company. It ranges there. One of the lowest ones is 45 a year, and then the highest that I have learned about is 72 a year. And then that one, they have bonuses and other things that you can do, like if like each time that you have to clean the aircraft for per leg is $100 kind of thing. So there's
Yeah.
different ways. So there's a wide range there. And then if after the charter, there's the Part 91, which is the private owner, like that's you fly them. Um, that ranges in the six figures. Starting normally 100 grand is the like bottom. Normally it starts at like 125 ish, and it can go all the way up to 220. It depends upon just different requirements. Like there's something like the guy I have, he doesn't need me that much. But then there's other private owners that do a lot of traveling. So there was one I actually was interviewed for that I was trying to decide if I wanted it or not, but it was truly 365, seven
Wow.
days a week, 24 hours a day. And you had to be within 2 hours of the airport, and
Mm.
and you had to be ready to go when they called you. And so for like that kind of perspective, if you had something like that, you have a lot of negotiating room for some really serious money, because you basically don't have a life. But yeah,
Right.
it's really wide. And then from my perspective of the contracting, where I do trips by the day, it can range. There are still some that haven't come up to the par. There's still some, but it's okay. 650 is like the lowest. Normally the average right now is between $700 and $800 a day. And then the highest I've been paid is 1,000, but there are some on the West Coast that are getting paid I want to say 12, it may be 1100, but
Wow.
the West Coast gets paid more than the East Coast, but even Florida is the lower paid, and then even New York is, it
It's
kind
high.
of goes LA, New York area, and then Florida in the
Yeah,
average
that
of
makes sense.
pay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's not surprising. That makes sense. Okay. So when you say charter company, can you tell me what you mean by that? Because
Sure.
we have kind of like charters sort of on the commercial side too, but that's like Omni or, FSI,
Okay.
Sun Country. So we're not talking about those though, right? What are we
I
talking about?
appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yes, you were correct. We are not talking about that. So a charter company is what they have considering floating aircraft. So which means the airplane never goes home and it's always quote unquote out on the road.
Loading.
So then the flight attendants or the crew will then can live anywhere. So they're called home based. And
Okay.
then they will airline them
Yeah.
positive space, pay
Yeah.
for their ticket to get
Head,
to
head,
the
head.
aircraft, and
Yeah.
then stay on that aircraft with the same crew and then fly their 4 days, 5 days, 2 days, whatever it is, and then come home. Sometimes you don't have to airline, sometimes it's at home. But charter itself is people paying for a leg, a particular destination from point A to point B.
Okay, so if I'm only a little bit rich and I want to go to the Kentucky Derby, I would charter a jet for the
You
Kentucky
could,
Derby
I guess. Yeah.
once a year,
Yes, you
right? So maybe
can.
like once a year, me and my whole family, like this is part of our
Yep.
vacation, we splurge and we charter a jet, but we don't own
Yes.
a jet all the time. So it's kind of
Correct.
that. Okay. Yeah. So it's
Yep.
like renting a vacation house or renting a nice car when you go
100%.
to Vegas or something like that. So it's just
You
kind of
got it.
okay. And plus it could also be easier than, trying to get in depending on how big I bet like for the Masters, I bet if you had like 10 people in your family to buy
Mhm.
commercial tickets, I bet charting a jet would almost be comparable sometimes.
Probably, it
Yeah.
probably is.
Yeah, depending on
Probably
where you're
is.
coming from.
Uh-huh. And also depending certain events like that, like the Super Bowl, all of those big events, they're they're more higher priced because of the demand. But if you're all going to St. Martin or whatever, that would be
Yeah.
something to consider too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true. Yeah, or we're all going to Disney World on a random
Yep.
week,
Yep.
and maybe we all charter a jet instead of buying 15, airplane tickets. Oh, that's really
Yes.
interesting. So that's a really good thing to think about too. So there's a lot of different people that use private aviation,
Yes.
and there's a lot of different opportunities. Is this something you can do seasonal since we're talking about like events and things like that? If you are a
Mhm.
commercial flight attendant and you're loving it, you don't want to leave it, but maybe would that be an option to maybe
Of
do
course.
seasonal
Yes.
part-time? How would that work?
I'm glad that would be the contract work.
Okay.
So I also want to stress it's not what you know, but who you know. If you don't take anything away, it's who you know, not what. So
Okay.
because of that, in contracting or doing part-time and seasonal, however you want to word it, it's networking with the FBOs in your area, sending out emails to the operators everywhere, just introducing yourself, sending your resume. Um, yeah, it's totally easy. I mean, not easy. Take that back. It's totally doable to do
Yeah.
both.
Okay. And so you could just
Mhm.
be um almost like on call, but without a requirement. So they could call you and say,
Yes.
hey, I've got a trip this weekend. Or maybe if you
Mhm.
know that you work the Kentucky Derby, the Super Bowl, and the Masters every year, you block that out in your schedule and you're like, I'm going to work a flight. I love these three things.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be really cool
Especially
too.
if especially if you did such a fantastic job that they remembered you, like you
Yeah.
decorated, like if you decorated it for the Super Bowl and had all of the Super Bowl things, they'll remember that.
Oh,
They'll
yeah.
remember how you made them feel. So that
Yeah.
it's totally possible that, yeah, it's who you
That
know.
excites
You got
me.
that
I'm like,
connection.
what? Go to Hobby Lobby, get your stuff, and just like
So
be like the
yes.
queen of the Kentucky Derby flights. Oh, that would be cool.
Yes.
Okay, good. I love that. I think
Yep.
that's really exciting. Because another thing I just want to mention from the commercial point of view. So for everyone that's listening, most commercial airlines have a clause in their handbook, their employee handbook, that you cannot work for another airline. Okay. So
Mhm. Okay.
pretty much all of them do. If you're employed by one airline, you cannot work for another airline. But although you could work on an airplane. So if you are working for a family, if you are working for even these Part 91s, probably even the charter companies, if they're not airlines, you can do both. And part of the reason I found this out was, like I said, when my husband was on leave from his airline, part of, since he was still employed, he could not work for another airline. So he actually asked for permission. We were living in the Keys. He asked permission if he could work as a ramp agent for, I think it was Envoy, American Eagle, you know, part-time. It was like 12 hours a week. And they were like, no, cannot work for another airline. But he was able to get the job at the airport working as a ramper at an airport because he wasn't employed by an airline. So this is sort of like if you happen to hear like, oh, I can't work for another airline, or there's rules about working for both. From what I've read, the employee handbook, this is not a conflict of interest. This is not working for another airline. So you can do both if you want to do both. And I know people who do both. I know Southwest flight attendants who give away all of their trips so that they can just work private and make money and keep their flight benefits. Not like suggesting that from an official point of view or anything. I just know people who do it. You know, and it's within the bounds. I mean, if you can make that work, then it's within the bounds. So you have lots of options. You can do both. You can go ahead and you can gradually. I mean, if I was a commercial flight attendant, I would probably try to just get my feet wet. And then once I kind of get everything up under me and I'm making enough money to replace free flight benefits and insurance and things like that, then you can jump in. And that's totally doable, right? We don't have to just cut it off. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to make sure that it's not necessarily easy. But each person's story is completely different from the other one. It's a matter of finding out what works for you. Like, do you have to work your 45 hours a month, or can you drop everything?
Right.
Like, so you can totally still work for the company, but yet pick up private trips.
Yeah.
And then if you can't, like, not even, and if you still have your flight benefits where you're not retired, where you can still book the jump seat. Some of the private flight attendants will not like me saying this, but I would use that to my benefit to get to trips. So living in Florida, I see trips all the time in New York. So if I had the opportunity to get there, to be like in an ASAP trip of 8 in the morning, but you can book a jump seat tonight to be there, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point too about knowing your handbook, because, you know, your flight benefits are for personal use. So depending on how
I forgot about that. Yep.
Depending on how you're thinking about personal use, you know, I'm personally going to go spend the night in my personal hotel tonight. I don't know what's happening tomorrow. Oops. Right. I mean, I'm not trying to tell people to be dishonest, but just knowing, I think part of it is just knowing what it is. Nobody wants to be caught off guard, you know, and like you were saying about sometimes airlines have minimums too, you know, not every airline does. And that's going to be in your contract, like your union contract for most people. So knowing your contract, knowing how many hours you do have to work on one, just so that you have all the information and you're in control. You're doing what you want to do. So yeah, I think that that's really smart. Okay, good. I think that's all the questions that I had. So was there anything else that you wanted to share with us? Or anything that was kind of like on the top of your head that you've been thinking about?
You are so good at asking questions. I was thinking about halfway through, like you do very well of just keeping the conversation rolling. You're able to pick up certain things that I say and make it keep rolling. So I appreciate that. I mean, this flows. Maybe it's our chemistry, Abby. I don't know.
That's it. I think it's because we're because we're just so online besties. Yeah.
Yes. My digital bestie. Yes. No, those were the two well, the main thing I was wanting to address was the commercial aspect, because I get asked that all the time, especially from coming from your group. Is clearing that up, that it really has no bearing. How you don't have to have private experience, you don't have to have aviation experience at all. And they don't favor you one way or the other if you do or you don't. It just depends on who you're talking to. So the safety, and the other thing was that the safety training that you're getting in commercial has no relevancy to the private safety training. So when you're in the commercial safety training, you're being trained specifically on their aircraft and their doors. When you're in this private safety training, you're being trained mainly on windows, not doors, for one. And then flight safety in Savannah, they actually have a training for the BBJ 737.
Okay.
where you have, where they teach you how to open the door, and they have a slide and it goes down into the pool. So there's that aspect of it too. But the safety trains are even completely different because there's, for one, there's no doors. The doors are
Okay.
normally handled by the
So that's
pilots.
okay. So that's good to know. And I mean, it's helpful because the training that you have is helpful, but it's
Sure.
not necessarily like it doesn't count. It's like if you when you do
Right.
go from a regional to a main line, you have to go through training again. And
It's
you're
a
learning
great way of
some of
putting
the
it.
yeah, you're learning some of the same things again, but especially if you're going in with no training, the fact, I mean, you do know how to do CPR. You do know how to fight a fire. Like you do know those things. So from
Mhm.
a real life point of view, I can imagine that they are useful, but they don't necessarily count as being certified. The certification
True.
doesn't follow you. Yeah.
I will say this, after whenever when I went through my initial and they were teaching us commands, it is different, so different in private because it's more of a conversation. You know, in commercial, it is like 1, 2, 3, 4, yelling. And
Yeah.
so setting that back when that was so ingrained in me, even if it was several years before, it still comes up. So my point behind this is whenever I see people in the safety training that have had, I can tell between the commercial and who have had no safety training. It's not because it's not ingrained in them. And when you go through a commercial training like that, you just don't forget it. Like you,
Right. Oh
even
yeah.
if it was several years ago, it was so ingrained in you that
Yes.
it just becomes,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I almost got, I had to work on not being frustrated with them because it was like, it was just more of a like, come this way. Let's leave everything. And I'm like, what?
Would
What's
you
wrong with
like
you?
to
No.
evacuate the burning aircraft or
Would
should
you
we
like,
stay
even
here
though we
for a
are
minute?
burning, let's go, you know? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a choice.
That's
Yeah.
funny. I can
But so
imagine.
that's why I personally think it has some kind of benefit. It's not necessary. Hear me say it's not a
Right. No.
requirement. But I think it has some benefit because you have that instilled in you from
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, and the same would be like from nursing, like your nursing certification doesn't make you a certified flight attendant, but like what is going on. Like
Yes.
what you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
good. I love that. Okay, so Natalie has a whole mentor program, a whole
Mhm.
system set up to get you connected to who you need to be connected to teach you what you need to
Mhm.
know, writing your
Mhm.
resume, meeting who you need to meet, telling you over and over again that you don't have to move, that you can do it from where you are, right? All of
Yes.
the stuff that you need to know
Mhm.
to get your feet wet, whether you want to go ahead and try before you do your facts or your flight safety training, or if you want to go that way first and get that in your resume all shored up, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. Natalie is mentor, like she said the word mentee and mentor several times, and I think that's such a great word. I'm a coach. I coach people.
Yeah.
That's different than mentoring. Mentoring is walking alongside you, and both are valuable, but Natalie's really a mentor, and so I respect that a lot too, because that's a little bit different than what I do. So I think
Mhm.
it's necessary though for your industry, because what's the one thing we're all supposed to remember? It's not what you know, it's who you know.
It's
So
who do
it's who
you
you
know?
know. Yes.
Who do
So
you
that was
know?
our one thing we had to remember. And that's why Natalie can't just coach and say, go over here and say this. She has to
Yeah.
say, let's go over here and let me introduce you. So
And
that's why it's a little different. So where can they find you, and where can they get connected with you to find out if the timing is right for this?
yes, you said that so well. Thank you. You're hired. You can be my PR.
Okay.
She says no, thank you.
No
My
PR.
no PR. yoursinflight.com/VIP. That's where you can find it. And then I have it priced at a $597, and then I have
Okay.
a 10 discount code, which is flight, and I'm sure
Oh,
you'll put it
yes.
all in the
Yeah.
description for them.
Yes.
And I want to emphasize that this, you guys, I'm still creating my founding members, my founding
Oh,
group
yeah.
to learn from, as far as like what I'm missing. Like, because when I'm in it, it's anybody. When you're in something, you don't necessarily see what you see every day. So I'm learning questions that they're asking me and what I need to add. And I'm mentoring these first few people. I won't be able to do that forever because I expect this to grow. and then it will turn into coaching. You did so well explaining that, the difference between the two. But the mentoring aspect is, in this particular industry, it's very important. I have mentors that have been flying 20 years. One is 20 years and the other one's 35. And I still visit with them all the time about things that they are precious people in my life because they have such a wealth of knowledge. And I'm like, I have still so much to learn. Like you, I am learning all the time still. But yeah, and I did it at a price that it's not, it puts skin in the game. So to show that are you really committed to even try? And then at the same time, it's not expensive as far as breaking the bank. And then when I help you get your first flight, if you put in the work, you get your payback instantly in the first day.
Yeah. Because I mean, you already told us kind of what the daily rates are. So even if this gets one job, you're going to come out ahead, right? And that's only the beginning. So even if you're just thinking about it and you're like, let me try it, or even if you liked my idea of like, I only work the Masters in Kentucky Derby, you know, even that.
Yeah, I'll help you figure that out, figure out how to do it.
You will make it back. You'll make it back as soon as you work your first flight. I love that we get our uniforms on Amazon. It sounds like, you know,
we do.
The investment, even from that point of view, is on the lower side. So there's different things you can do as you start to make some money. Take a couple culinary classes, all sorts of different things to just get better and better, because that's how you're making more and more money, finding your niche. Another thing I think is important that you said, that you just sort of like mentioned it, but I want y'all to hear what she said. She was trying to decide whether or not she wanted to take that job. So that's very different than us, right? Commercial, we're on reserve, crew scheduling calls us, we take that job. You know, we don't say like, you know, it is snowing in Buffalo, I only do Buffalo. Right? We can't, you don't say that. So, but she was like deciding, because she knows there'll be another opportunity, and she knows that it's, no matter how much money somebody pays you, it's not worth it unless it's what you want to be doing. So she was trying to decide, they were deciding if she was a good fit, but she also wasn't even sure if she was going to do it, even though it would have been a bunch of money and a bunch of, you know, cool opportunities. She gets to decide. And I think that that's something, if you're feeling a little burnt out with commercial and not being able to do what you want to do, and you want a little more freedom, then this could be a solution for you too, to do something like this. So
well, thank you for bringing it up. I glazed right over it. Like I didn't even
yeah, but it's so different. I mean,
it is, that is very, yes.
Yeah, it's so different.
Bringing back to my attention what I see every day. I will emphasize this part though, when you're first starting out, you don't say no. What matter what you don't say no, because you want that experience to be able to put on, like just one trip will be able to help you put certain things on your resume that people will want to see.
Yeah.
But now, after being in it a while, I know what's good and what's not.
Yeah.
Like how they treat their crew. Are they honorable about duty times? Do they pay them well? If they don't pay well, why? There's a reason why they don't pay well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I have blacklist people.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, and I imagine too, for some, I mean, even like we even talked about, like some people probably just don't do well with kids. They're like, I'm not, like, that's not where I'm the best. And some people are like, I don't love doing raw vegan. I'd rather do a charcuterie board or whatever. Like, you know, it's like, what are you good at? And that's another thing too, if you have any kind of culinary specialties too, even if it's from your personal life. If you have a child that has allergies and you are the best dairy-free baker in town, I mean, all of that's valuable for, you know, there's going to be another family that needs things like that. So we could keep talking and talking. So we'll have to do this again, because maybe we'll talk about like culinary, or about presentation, or maybe about like day in the life, like what you're actually doing day to day. I think that would be really fun.
That would be fun. I just take you from like
the next one.
What does a day look like from start to finish?
Like check in and all, because I follow a bunch of people on LinkedIn that and they're always doing pictures of their little displays and the little things. So okay, well, we can't talk about it now. We'll get together next time. So y'all be watching for the next video will come out, and we'll talk about kind of like day in the life and like what her actual duties are throughout the day as a private flight attendant. I think that would be really fun.
I love that.
But in the meantime, if this spoke to you, please reach out to Natalie. Reach out and ask a question. Or if you're like, you know what, they're right, one trip makes back my investment, let's just dive in. Please go to yours. Is it yoursinflight.com/VIP? Yes. Venue code
/VIP.
// it's in the description. Use
Yes,
code,
it is. There we go.
yeah, use code flight for as your coupon code. That's special for Flight Attendant Career Connection. She gave that to us. So use the coupon code, and yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for your time, Natalie. It was really, it was nice to talk to you again. So, and
Yes.
I'll hopefully soon.
Okay.